In the year 1 AD, a Greek engineer built a working steam engine, 1700 years before the Industrial Revolution. Impossible, right? But it's documented. His name was Hero of Alexandria, and the proof was stored in one place, the Library of Alexandria. That library also held calculations proving the Earth revolves around the Sun, made 1800 years before Copernicus. Mathematical proofs that measured the Earth's size with 98% accuracy. Medical knowledge that wouldn't be matched for 1500 years. All of it documented. All of it destroyed. Not once, 3 times, by people who feared what was inside. This is the story of the greatest intellectual crime in history, and the cover-up that's lasted 2,000 years. The Library of Alexandria wasn't just a building full of old books. It was the intellectual center of the ancient world, where humanity's greatest minds gathered, and where knowledge from every civilization was preserved. Founded around 300 BC in Egypt, the library held an estimated 700,000 scrolls, roughly 100,000 modern books. In an age when every text had to be copied by hand, this was almost unimaginable. Ships entering Alexandria's harbor were searched by royal decree. Any scrolls found were confiscated, copied by scribes, and added to the collection. The original stayed, the owners got duplicates. For 3 centuries, knowledge accumulated. Hero of Alexandria built machines that shouldn't have existed. Picture a metal sphere hanging over a fire. Inside, water. As it heats, steam jets out of 2 bent tubes, pushing in opposite directions. The sphere starts spinning, faster, faster. It was a working steam engine. He built automatic temple doors that opened with fire, a vending machine that dispensed holy water for coins, mechanical birds that sang, and programmable machines powered by gears and hydraulics. All real, all documented, all lost. If that knowledge had evolved instead of vanished, we might have had trains in 500 AD, factories and industrial machinery centuries earlier. In 250 BC, Aristarchus proposed that the Earth revolved around the Sun. He was right. But it took 1800 years for anyone to prove it again. His colleague Eratosthenes measured the Earth's circumference using shadows in geometry. In Syene, at noon on the solstice, there was no shadow. In Alexandria, there was one. He measured the angle, about 7 degrees, and calculated the circumference at 39,375 kilometers. The actual number is 40,075. He was off by less than 2%. They knew the Earth was round, its orbit, its size. No telescopes, no satellites, just math. When Galileo tried to teach heliocentrism in 1633, the church put him on trial and threatened torture. The knowledge had existed for 1800 years and was suppressed because it contradicted scripture. All of it, Hero's machines, Aristarchus' astronomy, Eratosthenes' mathematics, was stored in the Library of Alexandria. A single building that held the intellectual achievements of centuries. And then, someone decided it had to burn. You probably learned that Julius Caesar destroyed the library in 48 BC, when his troops set fire to ships in the harbor and the flames spread. That's not what happened. Caesar's fire destroyed about 40,000 scrolls in warehouses near the docks, but the main library survived. The Serapeum, a daughter library holding hundreds of thousands more scrolls, remained intact. The library continued for another 400 years. So if Caesar didn't destroy it, who did? By the late 4th century, Christianity had become the official religion of Rome. The Library of Alexandria, especially the Serapeum, symbolized pagan learning, Greek philosophy, Egyptian religion, scientific inquiry. In 391 AD, Emperor Theodosius ordered all pagan temples destroyed. In Alexandria, Bishop Theophilus led a mob to the Serapeum. They broke in, smashed statues, looted scrolls, and piled them in the courtyard. Mathematical treatises, astronomical charts, medical texts, philosophical works that had survived for centuries. Then they set them on fire, not because the knowledge was wrong, but because it asked questions the church couldn't answer. Greek philosophy challenged doctrine. Egyptian texts contradicted the Bible. Science explained the universe without invoking God. To the authorities, this knowledge wasn't just old, it was dangerous, and it had to be erased. 24 years later, the last scholar of Alexandria was murdered. Her name was Hypatia. In 415 AD, she taught mathematics, astronomy, and philosophy to rooms full of men. Politicians sought her counsel. Scholars traveled from across the empire to learn from her. But to the church, a woman teaching science was intolerable. A Christian mob dragged her from her chariot, stripped her, and killed her with broken pottery. Her body was torn apart and burned. Her crime was teaching, thinking, refusing silence. With her death, the last light of Alexandria went out. By the early 4th century, most of the collection was gone. Estimates suggest up to 70% of the scrolls were destroyed, not by invaders or earthquakes, but by rulers who feared the knowledge inside. Another myth claims Muslim armies burned the rest in 642 AD, but no historical record mentions this until 600 years later, during the Crusades. Conveniently. By then, there was almost nothing left to burn. The real destruction had already happened. In fact, the Islamic Golden Age preserved what remained. Scholars in Baghdad's House of Wisdom translated Aristotle, Euclid, and Ptolemy into Arabic. They saved fragments of Alexandria's legacy. Centuries later, Europeans learned from these Arabic texts during the Renaissance because the Greek originals were gone. The library didn't die in one fire. It was erased slowly, over centuries, by those who saw knowledge as a threat. After its fall, Europe entered what we call the Dark Ages. For nearly 1,000 years, scientific progress in the West stopped. In 200 BC, Alexandria's doctors performed brain surgery, mapped the circulatory system, and treated infections. By 800 AD, European doctors drilled holes in skulls to release evil spirits, bled patients to balance humors, and called disease divine punishment. For a millennium, people died from infections the Alexandrians could treat. Children died from diseases that had cures, burned with the scrolls. That wasn't lost progress. It was preventable suffering. When Renaissance physicians began dissecting bodies in the 1500s, they weren't discovering new knowledge. They were rediscovering what was known before the Dark Ages. The same with geometry, astronomy, and architecture. Medieval engineers built cathedrals with precision that mirrored Roman and Greek designs. Those techniques weren't inventions, they were recoveries, fragments pieced together from ruins. The destruction of Alexandria fits a pattern. In 1242, Mongols destroyed Baghdad's House of Wisdom, dumping thousands of books into the Tigris River. The river reportedly ran black with ink. In the 1500s, the Catholic Church banned books that challenged its authority. In 1933, Nazi Germany burned 25,000 books by Jewish and dissident authors. In 1966, during China's Cultural Revolution, Red Guards destroyed ancient texts and artifacts. In 2015, ISIS militants torched libraries in Mosul. Every empire that rises tries to control the past, because if you control what people know about history, you control what they believe about the present. Books are burned, records erased, knowledge suppressed, not because it's false, but because it's inconvenient. The Library of Alexandria is just the most famous example. Today, the same pattern exists. In 2021, YouTube removed over 1 million videos for misinformation. Who decided what counted? YouTube did. Amazon can delete books from your Kindle remotely. Google can bury websites. Facebook decides what news you see. Wikipedia's controversial pages are edited hundreds of times by anonymous users. The tools have changed. The control hasn't. Those in power still decide what knowledge survives and what disappears. The Library of Alexandria held the wisdom of the ancient world. It was destroyed because knowledge threatened authority. The Dark Ages followed because light was deliberately extinguished. What we know as history isn't the full story. It's what survived. The library once held 700,000 scrolls, steam engines, star maps, surgical techniques, mathematical proofs, philosophy, and it burned. Not by accident, but by design.
In 48 BC, Caesar's fire took a fraction. In 391 AD, Christian authorities destroyed the rest. By 642 AD, almost nothing remained. We lost 1,000 years of progress. Technologies delayed until the Industrial Revolution. Medical cures forgotten. Children dead from treatable illnesses. But the question survived. Why was this knowledge so dangerous? What else was erased? Who benefits when the past is buried? We've rebuilt our own Alexandria. We call it the Internet. Billions of texts, images, and videos, more information than any ancient library could hold. But the same question remains. Who decides what survives? History isn't written by those who lived it. It's written by those who survived to tell it. So the next time someone says knowledge was lost to history, ask yourself, lost or taken?